The Atlanta Falcons is next up. I'll go ahead and take this one. I'm going to give it a B. I see other people giving it an A, an A plus, an A minus. I'm going to give it a B. Has nothing to do with Kirk, right? Kirk is the A signing in this. And I really do like Darnell Mooney. When you need somebody to stretch the field and you go out and get a guy like that, that's a good signing. In a vacuum, it's a good signing. The money, I'm not the biggest fan of the money. He got a very similar contract. It's like almost the exact contract that Gabe Davis got. I think Gabe Davis is a little bit of a better player than Darnell Mooney, a guy who's a couple years removed from a 1,000-yard season. At least we know Gabe Davis is around that 800-yard mark every single year. Darnell's up and down. You're not sure what type of play you're going to get from the guy. And I really don't like the Charlie Warner signing, $4 million a year. I don't like
Warner? Come on,
I don't like
that's
that
my
signing.
boy.
That's cool, but not if you look at the other guys who are getting roughly $4 million a year. It just doesn't pan out. I don't like the Charlie Warner signing at all. So that's why I give it a B. Again, you're addressing some of the issues I like. Again, in a vacuum, the Darnell Mooney signing is great. Kirk Cousins is obviously fantastic. That's your splash, the biggest splash, the number one quarterback free agent on the market. You land him, but it's the money thing for me. That's my problem. What about you?
This is an A minus to me. They went into the offseason, they went into free agency with one clear need, and they signed the best player available at that need. And so when you have a clear need and you get the best player off the board for that need, especially a player, I've put Kirk Cousins on every team that needs a quarterback need throughout the life of this podcast so far. I'm a huge Kirk Cousins fan. He's not a superstar, but he's so much better than everything they had and have had.
And anything that's on the market.
Yeah, since Matt Ryan. And at their pick, a J.J. McCarthy might have been, in play there, but you just took a young QB recently, and you've had other young QBs in there, and it hasn't worked out. You go out there and you get a surefire, all-star talent, Pro Bowl talent, whatever you want to call Kirk. I know some people are higher on him than not. And we've also spent a good portion of this podcast talking about how terrible Justin Fields is. So I'm not going to, his skill receivers, his skill players that have played with him the past couple of years, I'm not going to hold that production against them as much. If they think that he fits the scheme and they might have big things for him to come, obviously a big question mark on Drake London, a big question mark on Kyle Pitts, a big question mark on Bijan Robinson. All of those players need to step up in a big way, and they got a quarterback for it. And just a little side piece on Charlie Warner. They released Jonnu Smith and they signed a tight end to take his place. Charlie Warner is not a pass catcher. He's a run blocker. He got a little more money than he was probably worth. And that's what happens with these guys is they get overpaid. And so I guess he feels the need for them as a blocking tight end. I don't have too many more thoughts on it except for that. But I definitely think when you get the best player available at your biggest need, at the most important position in the history of sports, to me, that's just, nothing else matters. The 49ers draft from a couple years ago, nothing else matters there because they got Brock Purdy. When you hit the quarterback position, everything else doesn't matter. It's an A.
Yeah. In looking at the draft too, early on they were really popular, and still now they're still a popular pick for edge rusher or defense in general, right? But they were also in play to trade up and try to take a quarterback. But now this is obviously out the window. You can sit. I think honestly, this might be a good entry spot for other teams, right?
Yeah.
If there's a quarterback still sitting on the board, whether there's talks of Drake May falling and J.J. McCarthy going as a third quarterback off the board, with Daniels and Williams going 1 and 2. If anyone, JJ, Drake, Jaden, anyone is on the board still somehow, some way at that pick 8, someone has to trade up and go get him, right? I think obviously a prime candidates, the Vikings are definitely going to want to. The Broncos, a couple of those teams are going to want to go give up that draft capital to go try to get one of those guys, and they could easily move back and still get a good defensive player, a Byron Murphy, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, one of the corners. I think they're sitting in a really good spot right now.
Well, the other thing you have to remember also is if the first 3 quarterbacks go the way we think they're going to go, Caleb, a mixture of Jaden Daniels / Drake May, and then Drake May goes. There are teams that are very interested in JJ McCarthy, knowing that he's most likely going to the Vikings, who don't have, I mean, I guess they have Sam Darnold now, but that Falcons pick becomes a prime jump spot for the Raiders. It becomes a prime jump spot for the Broncos to leap in front of Minnesota. And with that in consideration, it becomes a prime spot for Minnesota to say, no, okay, we're going to hop to 8 because we're already at 11. It's only going to take a little. We're going to hop to 8 to make sure we get our guy. Because once you identify your guy, you have to take your guy.
Yeah, so you're jumping basically the other teams behind
to
you.
make sure they don't jump you 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting that section of the draft, picks 7 through 17. Obviously, we're gonna be talking about it live. I'm so excited for that. Actually, the thing about this draft is you have Caleb at the top, and then everything else is just a gigantic ass question mark. That makes it exciting. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
When you have a surefire number one, we're going to be sitting here watching the clock tick down, knowing that Caleb's going number one, and trying to stay off our phones so we don't know. The pick 1 is on the TV, and they've already told us what picks 1 through 7 are on Twitter. Like, try to stay off of that. But it's going to be
it's going D&D on draft night.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a very, very exciting section of the draft, and the Falcons nailing free agency so far. Obviously, it's not over. Don't kill us if you're watching this next week. Like, we get it, okay? It like he mentioned, it's Wednesday, but so far to me, it's an A-.
Yeah, for sure.